Hello and welcome to Freedom Through Astrology, where we're giving you the keys. It's freedomthroughastrology.com. I'm your astrologer. My name is Donald Patak. Some contact information, standard YouTube copyright. And the keys to the reading, because I do read astrology a little differently. I use constellation-based astrology, sometimes called true sidereal astrology. It's astrology by the visible sky. In ancient times, astrologers were also astronomers. Tropical astrology, I hate to say this phrase, but divorced astrology from the sky and froze the signs to seasons. So that's why there's a little discrepancy there. I'm reading with the planets in the sky where they actually are. Tropical astrology is telling you where the planets are in the sky back, I believe, in the Roman era. I have to double check my history now. So it's astrology by the visible sky. And with astrology by the visible sky, it brings in a 13th sign, or an additional sign, I should say, making it 13 signs total. Between Scorpio and Sagittarius, there is another sign by astronomy, and that sign is called the fucus. It's the symbol of the wounded healer. It's that of a person holding a snake by the head and tail. Snake in ancient times symbolized knowledge. So when you have it by the head and the tail, this is controlling knowledge or using knowledge. To do what? From the myth of a fucus, it's learning to heal. First you heal yourself, and then ideally you're healing others with similar wounds. So there we go. I do use the natural size of the constellations because Mother Nature, Gaia, whatever, in her wisdom, when the when the whole universe was created, excuse me, made all the constellations different sizes. And for example, Virgo is just under 50 degrees, but Aries, Cancer, Libra, Scorpio, Fucus, individually, each of them is under 25 degrees. So I use the natural size of the signs. I think it's more appropriate because I live out in the country and I can actually see, the constellations. They're in their glory. They're all different sizes. It's an amazing thing to see. And I use the astrological midpoints. This is a system created by Athens Shementi, or the system that I use is created by Athens Shementi. He noted that when he was zooming in on the IAU boundary, which is arbitrarily drawn, at Scorpio and Ophiuchus, he noticed that several stars labeled Scorpius were actually over the border for Ophiuchus. It's like not exactly correct. So he figured out the last bright star of Scorpio, first bright star of Ophiuchus, used some geometry and came up with the midpoints. I think it's more accurate. So I believe it's more accurate. I use it and I've found it to be. So. And with all of that and doing astrology by the visible sky, my dates every year, the beginning of whatever season, are going to change. Keys to the reading part 2 with how I read is I interpret using evolutionary astrology. The planets, the signs, etc., they're teachers. They're offering you lessons. So these readings are lessons to learn. You have freedom of choice. I do give an idealized outcome, which is something, potentially beneficial for you to learn. And then I paint what I call the shadow, which, sometimes, life happens in such a way that, we choose the dark side, especially if it's dark chocolate. I'm going to pick dark chocolate all the time. I digress. So you do have freedom of choice. So you can choose, you just can't control the consequences. This is the weekly edition. These are the universal lessons that everyone on this planet is facing. So do have some compassion on your fellow Earth travelers. My dates and times are based on the Eastern U.S. time zone, as I am living outside of Buffalo, New York. So be aware of that. I'm operating within 1 degree of exact. It makes the transits easier to manage. I could go wider, and use that, but that gets to be, some weeks it gets to be incredibly overwhelming, and if I'm overwhelmed, you're lost. So 1 degree appears also to be the standard that other astrologers are using, so hey, works for me. And my software is Capricorn by Prometheus. I give credit where credit is due. So let me pull this up. These are the weekly transits for the week of July 28th through August 3rd. Our sun is still in Cancer. The moon is Leo through Scorpio. And when I show you the graphic of it, it's going to spend the bulk of the week in Virgo. So this is actually emotionally going to be a relatively stable week, ideally. We do have the first quarter moon in Virgo on August 1st at 8:01 in the morning. So there we go. We do have a sign change this week. Venus enters Gemini. So learning and communicating about relationships, etc. And I'll talk about that. Our active inner planets this week, very few actually. Venus, Sun, and Mercury. That's it. Actually, the big one of the week is Venus. So a big focus on relationships, creativity, rest and recreation, having fun. Our heavy hitters for the week are real transit lessons. The heavy ones are the outer planets. Saturn, Neptune still conjunct and making aspects to Uranus and Pluto. The outer planets are the tail of the tape this week and pretty much for the rest of this year. They're going to be casting their hand. These are deep life lessons to learn. And the retrograde parade, it's getting bigger. We have Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and adding this week, Chiron, reflecting on your healing journey. I apologize for my voice, but this heat, pollen, and God knows what virus I've come down with have really taken a toll on my lungs and voice. So hopefully this is working for you. So let's take a look at our overview for the week in my doodle tool. And Monday, calm day, thankfully, with just the sign changing, with the moon changing into Virgo. But again, as you can see, from Monday afternoon to Friday afternoon, the moon is in Virgo. So stable emotions is going to be good. And I'll be talking about that shortly. Tuesday, we do get Chiron moving retrograde. Wednesday, we get the Venus entering Gemini. Thursday's our big day for transits, having 3 transits happen. And then Saturday, we add another long, and I do mean long, outer planet transit with Uranus and Neptune, individuality informing your spirituality. So, and again, I'll deal with that. But again, few new transits on mostly inner planets, so they'll be quick. But that outer planet parade, that never-ending parade. Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm getting a message here. We got to remember to do this beforehand. That outer planet parade, which is really focused primarily on Saturn. And outside of Saturn and Neptune really are the 2 anchors. Until we get the Uranus-Pluto transit, really maturity there. So, okay, let me clear this. I have no idea even how I'm handling summer school. I can barely talk by the end of 9 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to begin with a recap of these older transits because they are still going on. Saturn conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Quite honestly, make this simple, maturing in your spirituality. They're both retrograde, so this is more inner work and reflective. How are you growing in your spirituality? What type of work and efforts are you making? And in Pisces, the aim here is this is helping you to transcend and see your life and understand your life from a higher perspective. The shadow here, Saturn falls in denialism and cynicism, and Neptune slips into fantasy, trying to numb the pain, trying to escape. And that's amplified by the fact that Neptune, who's a co-ruler of Pisces, that desire to escape or that fantasy it just gets amplified greatly. So that those dark, pessimistic, cynical moods can lead to a desire to escape and hide away. A hype is your worst enemy and has you falling for illusion and confusion. And you can feel very isolated, alone, and drifting aimlessly. So if you're feeling that, you know you're in the shadows, stop, anchor yourself, and figure out, you a long time. This goes till August 23rd for now. Neptune is sextiling Pluto, and I will tie the Saturn into it, but this is your spirituality. And again, this is inner work right now because they're both retrograde. So this is, the question here is, how is your spirituality helping you do the work of inner transformation? All transformation is inner before it becomes outer. You have to change your mind, change whatever, change your soul, whatever. All that inner work is being done right now before it translates into outer work. So how is your spirituality helping you to do that deep inner work and make those changes? And so, yeah, in the shadow here, falling for illusion, falling for hype. That hype, I mean, if you thought Saturn was dark, Pluto is cynicism and nihilism on steroids. And just deep emptiness and loneliness. And yeah, so this is deep illusion, literally leading, I would say, to brutal self-sabotage. And denial of defeat is possible only in a self-created fantasy. This is literally you're feeding your own defeat and feeding your own self-destruction. And again, Saturn here, this goes on to August. Saturn is actually the second fastest of our outer planets, the faster one being Jupiter. I digress. But Saturn, ideally Saturn, the lesson of Saturn is maturity in self-discipline. You do the work, Saturn will give you the reward. So if you do the work and you're learning to be present, and I'll combine Neptune in here, if you're doing the work on your spirituality, this will help create a greater interest and help you do the work and do that deep inner work, that deep inner transformation. And this can help you understand what you're going through, why you're going through it, and help you to recover what was lost. My notes here do say practicing self-discipline is it possible to see ways to recover what was lost and how to do it. And I would dare say and add into that with that spiritual insight, because Saturn is conjunct Neptune. So maturing in your spiritual insights, you're going to understand what was lost, how it was lost, and then how you can regain it, how you can do the work to reclaim it. And then as Pluto works through Capricorn, how you do that work of transformation. The shadow here is slipping into despair and self-pity, and this just leads to defeatism, brutal defeatism and nihilism, having you reliving the wounds of the past in spades. And developing a cynical and nihilistic attitude towards life. And this literally falls into darkness. And with that, I'll tie Neptune in here. This is falling for the illusion, falling for the hype, and just slipping deeper into loneliness and darkness. Don't go there. God, I'm so used to using a touch screen. From Friday, we have the moon entering Leo. Emotionally, you're up to being seen. You're learning how to stand up, be seen, how to express yourself, express what you're feeling. Excuse me. So when you do get an opportunity to be seen, take it. Leo likes to be seen and likes to be appreciated. So if you do get that opportunity to be seen, be appreciated, please do so. The shadow here is playing up pointless drama or playing to the crowd. This can have you feeling empty and superficial and just drained. Let me go with that. We have Saturn sextiling Uranus. Excuse me. And again, this is doing that work of maturity. How are you growing, and what are you leaving? And this is a waning sextile, so it's leaving things behind. So as you grow and you mature, you're leaving the old things behind, so you can become more authentic and more at peace and stronger in your authenticity. So as you understand your life and what the journey that you're going through from a higher perspective, it helps you to become more authentic and more strong and more peace in who you really are. The shadow, slipping into fear, despair, can have you lose sight of who you really are and become someone that you're not. Whether it's this eccentric, over the top, poking people, just doing stuff just to get a reaction, or selling out just to fit in. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. A Taurus can be lazy, and in action, Taurus can also be the bull in the china shop. Let's be honest. Um, so, if what you're doing leads to an emotional, some sort of outburst, and you're, trying to get a reaction, people, yeah, that's the bull in the china shop, brutally. And then finally, over the weekend from Sunday, Venus in Taurus sextiling Chiron in Pisces. Venus in Taurus. Venus is learning to have peace in your relationships, having peace in your relationships. And how is this helping you to release those wounds? See the wounds from a higher perspective, your relationships wounds to your creativity as well. How is finding this peace helping you to release those wounds and let them go so that you can move on and build? Peace in relationships, interest in healing, releasing the wounds, know what to forgive and how. And I think that's a very important lesson here, is forgiveness and finding the peace that comes with forgiveness. And forgiveness is first and foremost for yourself. I think the greatest lesson I've ever learned for forgiving someone is that it's for myself. The shadow here is trying to be slick and manipulative, and that can lead to deeper wounds to everyone involved. Relationships, etc., can suffer, become shallow and empty, and you're trying just to do anything you can to numb the pain or escape what's going on. And honestly, it just doesn't. 1 second. I'm out of throat coat. I gotta buy some throat coat. And from Monday, the moon enters Virgo, and the moon will be here all week until Friday. And it enters Monday afternoon. And so this is a desire for self-improvement. I think it's the best way to call this. Grow, become more skilled, pay attention to what your responsibilities are, and what is it that you need to learn in order to best meet them. And find people who are good at that so you can learn. Good week for you to get better at learning and becoming better. The shadow is you can become worried about your abilities, become harsh and self-critical, and instead of healing, this is just defeatism, honestly. And interesting is that Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so it's kind of defeating the purpose of learning. Instead of learning how to get better, you're staying stuck or getting worse. Tuesday, Chiron moves station retrograde in Pisces. So you may feel stuck during the station retrograde because it's like a pause on your CD player. Those of us who are old enough to remember cassettes, you hit pause on the cassette. Wasn't the greatest thing to do for the belt or the tape. But Chiron is taking a step before it does that retrograde work, the internal work, the reflective work. So this is reflecting on your healing journey. And in Pisces, I'm going to say this is reflecting on the healing journey of your spirituality. Are you healing those spiritual wounds and releasing them, letting them go? And And how are you able to understand them and see them from a higher perspective so that you can do that? So do reflect on that spiritual journey. Have compassion for yourself and others with similar wounds. It's easy. It's easier for us to see our own wounds. We look at everybody else. Other people can be your greatest mirror. Um, and so you pay attention. What are ways are you learning to open your heart and open it up to other people's realities, becoming more aware of their journey? Because, like I said, we see our own wounds best in other people. The shadow here is refusing to heal and becoming the wound. Even in Pisces, denying the injury and the wound altogether, and even worse, inflicting it on other people. Um, I'm just reminded of the analogy, the army that shoots its own wounded people. That's kind of what it is. And so becoming the wound, refusing to heal, and holds you back in life, resulting in wounding others worse. And also, I have note here, playing the victim is an idle attempt at escapism that keeps you trapped in the prison of, keeping you trapped in this delusional prison. So yeah. And it's a prison that's made up in your mind, so it's a fantasy prison. It's the worst type of prison to be caught in. Wednesday, Venus enters Gemini. Venus is about developing your relationships and learning and growing in your relationships. So that's part one. Venus also teaches you about your creativity. Also, yeah, creativity, the arts, music, writing, drawing, painting, etc. So look at the arts as a whole. Um, it's also about rest, recreation, and having fun. We always focus Venus being on relationships, but let's remember Venus covers all of that. So what are you learning about that? So this is your time to learn more about your relationships with other people. It's also more time for you to learn more about having fun and more time for you to learn to be creative, etc. And look at what you're communicating and how. And what are you sharing with people? And also, what are you learning from them? Gemini is about learning, but it's about you learn by paying attention. I think that's the most important thing here. So pay attention to other people. Pay attention to the art and the music, etc. that you like. What can you learn from it? And how can that help you to improve? The shadow, Venus, can be very slick, manipulative, and lazy. Looking for the easy way out. And in doing so, you're going nowhere fast. And Gemini is scatterbrained, talking, not paying attention, not learning anything, not really sharing anything, just blathering mindlessly. And it can be talking past people, which is even worse. And that can get you stuck in predictability and boredom. I'm reminded of somebody that I know who, will talk to people once and that's the last time they'll ever talk to them because they just carry on forever and they don't take subtle hints. Thank God I got a bottle of water with me. Thursday is our busy day of the week. We have 3 transits today. That new transits, I should say. We still have those old transits carrying on for half of eternity. Sun conjunct Mercury retrograde is focusing on learning self-care. Cancer is about learning self-care, learning about nurturing, caring, feeling, etc., ruled by the moon. So that's going to be an important lesson here. So reflecting, like, what are you learning about your own self-care? Let's look at Mercury a little bit. Add on to that. What are you learning about your own self-talk? Focus on your self-talk. What are you saying to yourself? Because you can heal yourself with your own words. You can heal yourself with what you think. I'm reminded of a story of a gentleman who was told that he thought he had one injury and he was told the wrong information accidentally by the hospital. It was a mix-up in files. So he said, "Oh, that's all it is." And he went home and he called him back. "Oh, we made, like, hey, we got to check you out." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine." And and they checked. It's like, holy crap, this guy's healed. Placebo, the power of belief, the power of the placebo. So this is a time to focus on what are you learning about self-care. What do you learn? And look at what you're saying to yourself. Look at your beliefs. Look at what you're thinking. And how can that be healing and nurturing? The shadow, the sun can be very egotistical. It can be burning too bright, not wanting to shine at all. And then when you get into the shadow of Mercury, that dragging yourself down and out, you know it all, you can't learn, and that's what you communicate to yourself. And my notes here say be careful mental gymnastics and defensiveness that blinds you to the world outside. Slipping into worry makes you defensive and leaves you living in a false image of yourself. Yeah, wow. There we go. And again, short, quick transit there. And we have Venus doing a double transit, and I will talk about both. I'll tie this all together at the end. First, Venus in Gemini is squaring Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Nice that these are two similar transits. And first thing that's going to cause people to panic here is that square. Let's remember that the purpose of a square is to strengthen you. When you look at the strongest buildings in the world, they're built on squares. Pyramids have lasted for centuries. Everybody thinks it's because they're shaped like a triangle. Yeah, that has a little bit to do with it. When you get up close, they're built on squares. So the purpose of a square, the purpose of this challenge is to strengthen you. So how is what you're learning in your relationships about your creativity strengthening Neptune, your spirituality, your ability to be in the moment? So yeah, my note here is what you're learning from others. How is this helping you to be more present in life with others? How is this helping you to be more present in your spiritual life? And how is this informing your spiritual life? And remember that Neptune is retrograde, so this is a little bit more reflective and internal work. So what is it you can learn from others? What can art teach you about your spirituality? Take a look at all those different elements that make up Venus. Art, the relationships, rest. I come from a fundamentalist Christian background and a Catholic background. There's a line in the Bible. It's be still and know that I am the Lord. You know, how is learning to just slow down and be patient, be present? How is that strengthening you in your spirituality? And the shadow here is being vain and lazy and living a life and trying to manipulate and control things to living a life of hypocrisy and high fantasy can result in being shallow and living a shallow and meaningless life. Also have, shallow and meaningless relationships, just looking to see what the latest spiritual craze is or what the latest whatever is and falling for that and falling into that and not really developing any depth can be very distracting and pull you away. And instead of this being a strengthening experience, it becomes a crushing burden. And Venus is also Venus is also squaring Saturn. So how is your relationships with others? I'm going to focus just on relationship for this one because it seems to make just a little bit more sense to me. Though the art does absolutely work and the music and that rest and whatever, but what can you learn from others in all these realms that can help you mature? And how is all that helping you strengthen your ability to mature? How is that helping you to see your life and understand your life from a higher perspective? Because remember, we're dealing with Pisces here. Pisces is your ability to transcend life and see it from a higher perspective, understand things better and at a deeper level. So building deeper relationships, creativity, etc., can help you becoming more mature and skillful. I'm going to type Neptune into this. And all that pulling together can help you strengthen and grow and mature in your spiritual practices. So I really think that this Venus squaring Saturn Neptune is about strengthening and maturing you in your spirituality. Friday, very early in the morning, we have our first quarter moon. And it's really at the tail end of Virgo here. Again, another square. So this purpose here is to strengthen you. The moon, your emotional self, which also rules Cancer incidentally. So it's a little bit more tied in. But you're looking at how can what you're learning, I said Venus, the moon in Venus, and the moon in Virgo. God, tired. I'm sorry. The moon in Virgo is your desire to improve. How is that challenging you and strengthening you to learn how to take care of yourself? I'm going to tie that because Mercury is still conjunct now the sun at this time. So how is that desire to improve helping you to learn how to take care of yourself better? How is that desire to improve helping you learn to, and I'm going to pull that self-talking because I really think that Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun in Cancer there. I think self-talk, what you're saying to yourself, pay attention to it. Because, and I'm going to go back to the book of Genesis and the Tanakh, Torah, whatever you want to call it, the Jewish Testament. In the beginning, the Lord created heaven's work, and the Lord spoke, and it became, or Elohim spoke, and it became. What you think and then what you speak creates your reality. So what you think and what you speak is how you're taking care of yourself. How are you learning to take care of yourself emotionally, and how is that helping you take care of your core, learning to take care of your core identity? The shadow here is that worrywart and self-critical and moodiness. This becomes a crushing burden. And instead of building you up, the crushing burden tears you down and you feel overwhelmed, and that self-talk just goes down fast. That talk where you talk to yourself about saying that you can't do anything right, and you always make a mess. This leaves you becoming even more defensive, swiping at people, wanting to pull away and wanting to hide away. And even more self-absorbed. And this can result in greater loneliness and isolation. That's the morning. Thankfully, in the afternoon, the moon enters Libra. And here you're learning to take a breath and take a pause. Venus, hold on. Libra is scales, and remember, when you put the item on a scale, it goes up and down. So if things may feel a little out of whack, that's okay. Deal with the ambiguity. It'll be okay. Deal with the paradox. It doesn't have to perfectly make sense. Just know that things will work out in the end. Trust in the process. I think that's a good lesson here. Emotionally, learn to trust in the process. Things may not make sense. However, if you learn to work with it, everything will work out in the end. And look to see what that's revealing about your situation in life. Where do you need to kind of just let things be? Because remember when you're doing, I remember in science class, I was trying to get the scale to balance fast, and I put my thumbs on the scale to try to slow it down. It actually made it worse. You're learning to let the paradox and the ambiguity work itself out, and in the end, it balances itself out perfectly. Emotionally learn to trust that process. The shadow here is becoming emotional and getting caught in indecision and making poor decisions, leading to misunderstandings and making an emotional mess. That leads us to Saturday. Second. Good thing I got a bottle of water here. Yeah, this heat dome is killing me. I'm heat sensitive. Thank God I have good air conditioning in my car, and the library is air conditioned where I work. I need air conditioning at home. We have the last two of the outer planets in a sextile, Uranus and Taurus, learning to be at peace with your authentic self. In a sextile, interest, excitement to what? Neptune in Pisces. How is learning to be at peace with who you really are, your authentic self, helping you to grow in your spirituality, your spiritual practices, and helping you to just be? I think this is you learn. I think great. I believe the great way of saying this is, you're learning to be, to just be who you really are. Mhm. And accepting who you really are, and accepting others as they are, and just lets you, let things be, and just letting them be who they are at this moment can actually bring peace, bring some stability, and in a way that can help you, gain enlightenment and insight from a higher perspective as to why people are the way they are, and why, what situations they are. Yeah. The shadow here is the Uranus is that it can be the eccentric rebel acting out to get a reaction, or it can be that sellout. And the sextile here becomes a sense of nervousness, and can be irritability and whatever. And sextile to Neptune, falling for the hype. This is creating a fantasy in your mind, falling for lies that you've kind of created and living those lies. And it leads to emptiness of life, feeling isolated, alone, lost, also stuck. You can feel stuck in an illusion and caught up in a fantasy that you just can't seem to escape. And that's August. The issue with exact is we have another retro. I believe Uranus goes retrograde. I don't have the date written down in my notes with me, but we. So if Uranus going retrograde, we're going to have Neptune going direct, but this goes August through the end of December. So this is a very long transit. So this is going to be deep. Take time to learn it. And on Sunday, the moon enters Scorpio. And so this is an opportunity to open up yourself up to the deep truths of life, and emotionally opening up to the deep truths of your life and face them. And life can seem a little bit more intense as you face the deep issues that do arise. Know that you have what it takes to face them, deal with them, and handle them. So if life feels a little more intense, it's okay. You can handle it. You can learn to work with it and go with the flow. This is kind of pulling. I always like to say Scorpio likes to pull back the curtain. So do emotionally expect the curtains to get pulled back a little bit. You can handle it. The shadow here is falling into that rotten mood. And it can be that rotten mood where you know that person's got a bad mood and they're taking it out on everybody. Or, I remember having a girlfriend. Hey, how are things going? Fine. Is that person, is that clamming up? I know when she said fine, things worked, especially when she said it in certain tones. It's also possible to clam up and shut down. And again, rotten mood, internalized, but literally you're just pouring hot water in your, hot oil, whatever, in your own lap, or hot coals in your own lap. So slipping into rotten mood, over analyzing situations can make them more complicated than they really are. So there we go. So that's our reading for the week. Just a few transits, a focus on relationships, growing deeper in them, maturing in them, healing them. And then those outer planets, just this deep inner work on growing and maturing in your individuality, in your spirituality, and your inner transformation. A lot of inner work here. So do follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow. These guys are making millions and billions of dollars off of your data. Digital Soul Space is a social media site run by Mighty Networks. The creators of it have it set up so that Mighty Networks is concerned that your data is yours and you have a right to control how they share it and who they share it with. And it's a spiritual site. So I do astrology. There's other astrologers on the site. But if you're into crystals, tarot, or oracle decks, different spiritual practices, we have an incredible array of interesting people on there who are willing to share. You ask a question, people will share what they know. And 4 great monitors, troll-free zone. I call it your spiritual safe space. Do check that out. I am a member of the ISAA, International Sidereal Astrology Association. We are having a conference coming up, and it's a free conference on September 27th. I gotta post that on my I gotta post on my Facebook page and Instagram page. Do register, do check it out. Some great speakers going to be there. Athens Shimenti, Dr. Danny's going to be there. Dr. Danny, and Michael's name just slipped my mind, but he's known as Uma Stellar. Astrologers that I really look up to and I respect. I watch their stuff and I learn from them. They're great people. And it's sidereal astrology. It's going to be a lot more than just my 13. I do 13 sign. Other people do 13 signs, but we're going to have some 12 sign astrologers. We're going to have a Vedic astrologer. I think his name is Gary Toole. I can't remember. Her first name is Gail. Her last name is escaping me. She does Babylonian or Sumerian astrology. So it's going to be a wide variety of astrological styles, all done sidereal. So it's going to be an incredibly interesting day and free. All you got to do is just register on their site. They have a link. I'll put it in the I'll put the link in the description for the video. But do check that out. My lungs, I feel like they're about to give out, so I'm just going to do this quickly. I do offer a wide variety of readings. Quick 6, which just gives you an overview of what your chart looks like with 6 key points. I do birth chart readings, karmic or past life readings. I also do horoscopes 1 month, 1 year, 3 months, and 1 month. I do have packages that combine these readings with a 10% discount built into them. On my website, when you go on there, you get a pop-up. All I need is an email address and get my once-a-week newsletter where I give a few deeper insights, discounts, etc. If you happen to close that out accidentally, up the right-hand corner, you'll see the subscribe button. Click on that, and that's all I need is an email address, and it's just once a week. On the blog is where I do have the my daily posts. If I do daily posts where I do deeper dives and deeper explorations, that's where I put it. So thank you very much. I apologize for my voice. It's this weather and some sort of viral infection that I have is making it very difficult for me to keep caught up on readings, and I am behind. But I get done with summer school and I rest for like 3 or 4 hours and I just crash right out and go to sleep. It's wiping me out. And yes, we're teaching even in summer school, we're short-staffed. So thank you for everybody's understanding. I do appreciate it. Do like, follow, share, sign up for the newsletter. Remember, in the visible sky, your life changes. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. Have yourself the best week possible.